Hey guys, it's Gerry coming to you today from Rythmia Life Advancement Center in Guanacaste, Costa Rica on a seriously beautiful day. What is Rythmia Life Advancement Center? Well, we are a life advancement center situated in Guanacaste, Costa Rica. We use plant medicine, metaphysical teachings, wonderful food, yoga, massage, and everything to bring about a tremendous change. And stay with me on this. The change that we bring about, 95.12% of the people that have been here, that's 951.2 out of 1,000, have stated electronically that they have received a life-changing miracle during their stay. And that the best part of this is 6 months later, they get another survey and 97.55% of them state that this was the week 6 months later, that the miracle's still working in their life, that the change is still working in their life, and that this was the week that changed their life. And that's amazing stuff. So, I'll talk to you about something. On March 17th, when the world was in misery, and they thought that the death rate of this virus was going to be 10%, I did a ceremony. In the ceremony, it said 17% infection rate and a less than 0.86% death rate. That's a markedly low number, right? That's a super low number. That's unconscionably low. Now, what has happened? I did another Facebook Live a week later, and I said same thing, 17%, but I even revised the death rate down to somewhere between 0.56 and 0.26. That's 2 to 5 out of every 1,000 people. What are we seeing now? We're seeing something miraculous. If you're not paying attention to this, you're missing the whole thing. If you have ever taken a math class in school, or if you've ever been involved in a business that looks at metrics, please take a look at this. Nobody's saying a word about it, and it's the biggest story in the history of coronavirus. What is it? Well, the death rate is completely rolling over. The infections are skyrocketing, and the death rate is rolling over. It's going to be non-existent. It's going to be so minuscule, meaning such a little tiny death rate that it's beyond words. And here's what's interesting. The mainstream media is not reporting on it. Why? In my opinion, it doesn't fit with the narrative of fear. It doesn't fit with the narrative of fear. In other words, if you can catch this thing and your chance of dying is, let's say, 2 out of 1,000, it's not that it's not an important thing, but it's not that big of a thing. It's not that big of a thing. Here's the thing, the lawsuits would fly because it didn't warrant shutting everything down. And lawsuits would fly, everybody would be to blame. They're gonna try to not mention it. But do me a favor, go to the coronavirus update every day and just look at the deaths over new cases, and you will see. So this, before long, in other words, you can't, in the emperor's new clothes, at some point, an innocent child is going to tell the truth. And then the cat's out of the bag. When that happens, they're going to declare a death to coronavirus. And although some of you are going into lockdown again, you will be quickly out of it and things will be back to normal before you can blink. Okay, where am I going with all this? I have a point with this. Please press share. Please press share because I actually am going somewhere with this. So, I'm going to make another prediction. On today's date, July the 7th of 2020, I'm going to make another prediction. And I saw this clearly on medicine. The roaring 20s are going to be back. Catch this. The roaring 20s, this decade, just like the decade of the 20s 100 years ago, was marked by the end of a virus at the beginning and then the crash of a stock market at the end. This is an in between those two things. was the headiest time in the history of our country. Headiest, meaning the most alcohol consumption, the craziest dancing, a laissez-faire attitude towards life, because these people were pent up for 3 years with the Spanish flu, and they came out dancing and forgetting it ever happened because we want to push away our pain so quickly. Now, so please remember that on today's date, I predicted the Roaring 20s. When are they going to start? The moment that they declare the virus dead. And that can be, my spidey sense says now, between now and elections. But let's see as this turns out. And I'm going to tell you, buckle up, because the economy is going to soar and things are going to change. And not only will it be like it was, but if we do our work, and I talk about our work, it's going to be better than it ever was before. Better. Okay, how can this happen? Please press share if you think someone needs to hear this. How can this happen? Well, here's the issue. Until we agree on what the conditions precedent are, it can't work. So what do I mean we? I mean there's a right, there's a left. There's vaxxers and anti-vaxxers. There's spiritual and atheists. There's all of these different factions. And what they're doing is, and this is what's so interesting, they're taking an ideology that might have 1,000 points in it and saying, this is the ideology that's right. And so you have the Republicans who have their hardcore following that are all saying, yes, this is right. Everything in it is right. And then you have the Democrats that are saying, with their following, that everything that's in their box is right. Now, statistically, it's impossible for that to be true. It's impossible for that to be true, because the best someone can do on right and wrong is about 52%, and that person's brilliant to be right on games of chance or odds making that often. So what does that mean? Well, here's how this plays out. If I'm saying everything in my box is right, then that means everything in your box is wrong. And now all of a sudden, I'm trying to, so now that's off the table. The facts are now off the table. And now what it is that I'm right and you're wrong. And from I'm right and you're wrong, this problem, which is real, can never be solved. Can never be solved. Here's what can happen, and here's what does happen in that instance. In that instance, what happens is war. In other words, if you don't accept everything in my box, you're a racist. If you don't accept everything in my box, you're an asshole. If you don't accept everything in my box, you're an idiot. If you don't accept everything in my box, you're less than human. Now all of a sudden, we have to have something that's not true, because we've already established the fact that the most that can be right in anybody's box is about half. Now all of a sudden, we've gotten past the part which could be good. Here's the part that could be good. We've jumped over the part that could be good and gotten to war. And in war, there's almost always a winner. An out-and-out winner. And who wins? The strongest, the swiftest of foot, the most well-armed, the largest, the toughest. And I have to tell you, that's the truth. That is the truth. With rare exception. In the beginnings, when the colonists fought the Indians fought from behind trees, and they got an advantage for a little time. But in the end, you know what happened there, unfortunately. In Vietnam, the most well-armed lost. It's a rare war where that happens. Most wars are going to be won by the strongest. So that means that in that instance, might is right. We don't want that. Here's where we have to go back to. We have to go back to the truth. We have to take a look at things and say, oh my God, you know what? This part of this is right. This part of this is wrong. This part of it is right. And this part of it is wrong. And we need a leader. who can sit there and lead people because there are not perfect solutions. You see, the brilliance of being a great manager or a great leader is taking a look at all the options and taking the least harmful as good. There are not perfect. It can't be perfect for everyone. It has to be the best foot forward, and we need someone to do that. Now, here's where this gets crazy. In this age when anybody can have a blog, anybody can write a story, and the story, the headline does not have to match the content, that I can make things up and produce them all day and they'll get picked up. You have that going on, and then you have a system of filtering of news that has analyzed what I believe in and is only feeding me what I believe in. So now all of a sudden I am shocked when I lose to someone else because everything I read supported my position. You gotta see, you gotta be smart enough, aware enough to realize that this is happening to you whether you know it or not. I am taking all of your prejudices, if I'm Google, and I am feeding them to you as being right. Yes, these people are no good. Yes, this is what's going on. Yes, you can't be a sheep in this. You have to look at it. Spirit is counting on a small percentage of us to rise above it and to talk from a place of truth and to admit that we don't know what we don't know. What am I talking about? Well, here's the truth. Math does not lie. Math does not lie. If you go back to the math and you take a look not only at the first level layer of numbers, but the ones below it and the ones below it and the ones below it, you can quickly ascertain the social or political agenda that triggered that mathematical event. But claiming it doesn't exist is where we all get in trouble, because from it doesn't exist, or from, let's talk about something that was done to my great-great-great-grandfather. That is not where this is at. This is at the here and the now. This is at the here and the now. And I want to tell you something. I'm smart enough to know that about half of what the Republicans are promoting are right, and about half of what the Democrats are promoting are right. And I wish I was a leader, because I would take the time to investigate what those things are and to come up with a merge plan going forward, because somewhere in the middle is truth. Almost always. Somewhere in the middle is truth. And I want us to be in truth. So just think about this. If your biases are being fed to you in and out 24/7, and you think I'm too smart to be affected by this, but at the end of the day, you're just getting reconfirmation, confirmation bias without ever understanding what the other person is saying, because you read those headlines and they're full of shit too. They're full of shit too, and you're easy to pick out the full of shit in them, but very hard to pick out in the full of shit of your own team. This is what takes clarity. This is why people drink medicine. And I'm so lucky to be living in a world where so many people right now have drank medicine. There are so many people that have done mind-expanding medicines that will allow a certain percentage of us to get up above the fray and to really, really, really be honest about things. Because from this point of honesty, from this point of integrity, something can really change for all of us. So what do I mean by that? Well, here's the truth. If we got together and told the truth, yes, this is this crime rate from this group to this group. Yes, this is how much money big corporations are actually sucking out of society. Yes, this, and there will be, here's how you know if you got it right. If you're doing this and you get it right, half of it feels wrong to you. Catch this. About half of it will feel wrong to you, because the data is going to go against something that's part of your own ethics, that's part of your own ideology, that's part of what you believe since you were a kid or your family has believed. If you do this right, half of it is going to feel wrong. And then from there, from this new basket, this new wisdom, this new learning, this new teaching of truth as a religion, of truth as a religion, the truth. From this place, everything can be healed. Everything can be healed. So what do you think? A lot of people think, well, Gerry, what are you talking about? A brand new party, a libertarian party that comes up with all these things and catches all the votes? No, I'm not talking about that. That might be 5 elections from now. That this is slowly going to get weaned out. What I'm talking about is a small percentage of us that are committed to talk only the truth, to say we don't know what we don't know, to stay at peace, to not put political correctness over truth when we're asked. So what does that say? That says I am not going to put political correctness over truth when I'm asked. In other words, I'm not going to go outside myself to say, hey Tom, those are some ugly shoes. But when Tom says to me, what do you think of my shoes? I have to quietly, calmly, and with facts state the truth. State the truth. That's what we're being asked to do. And from this, I'll tell you something, that if you're in a huge, massive crowd and you quietly, calmly state the truth, you might get resistance. But if you're one-to-one with a fellow human being whose goal is the best and greatest good for all, when you quietly, calmly, and succinctly tell the truth, then everything goes away. Because all of a sudden, this is what the discussion goes to. Hey, you're on that side of the fence, I'm on this side of the fence. We finally agreed that the fence is the problem. So who's gonna break it down? I got an idea. I get the hammer and you get the wheelbarrow and we'll take care of this thing. Boom, that is it. But if you think for a second that saying all of these people are devils, that the whites are devils, that the blacks are devils, that the Chinese are devils, that the Republicans are devils, that the corporation guys are devils, that the working class is devils, that people are stupid, whatever you do, when you put that into a basket, you are wrong. You're wrong. And from that, what you're inviting is war, and a war that the strongest and the most well-armed is going to win. And what I don't want to have happen is a war of any descriptions in the United States or any other land, because by God, have we not evolved past this? Have we not evolved past reptilian activity? There aren't words for it. There aren't words. I understand that the people who are the least heard are screaming the loudest and having the greatest problem. It is not something that's going to be won over screams. It is not something that's going to be won. It's going to be won by a small percentage. You know what it takes to change this vote in November? My guess is 3% of the population, 3 out of 100 people. Boom, changed. That's it. You know what it takes to stop a corporation? About 10% of the population stopping to buy its product. This is not fucking hard stuff. This is so simple. I get pissed when I see people who are complaining about a company that's doing things the wrong way, and yet they're fucking getting shit delivered by it every day. I'm not smart enough to cross that bridge. I don't understand how you can, it's like eating a sandwich at McDonald's and fucking complaining about McDonald's. This Big Mac sucks. I fucking hate these fucking things. It's ridiculous shit. So what we gotta do is we gotta be honest with ourselves and get ready, because I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna give you something to really be happy about and to think about and to shoot forward for. We're going to go into the roaring 20s. And we can do this and not make the same mistake that was done in 1920. We can do this the right way. We can make the roaring 20s a utopia here, a utopia. And who's gonna do it? 3, 5 to 10 out of every 100. That's it. So here's where knowledge comes in. So I always used to have a problem as a Catholic that I would say, wait a second, if the baby dies without being baptized, it's going to hell? I could never bridge that. I couldn't get, that's one of the first things that started me on a different direction, right? And then a priest once explained to me, he said, Gerry, of course not. He said, the only people that are actively going to hell are people who realize the truth and turn their cheek to it. And I'm not a guy who believes in a outside imposed heaven or hell, because all of us are living in either right now. Either we're living in heaven or we're living in hell. And I hope you're living in heaven. But once you had a glimpse into the truth, once you've been asked to join this team and you say, no, I'm going to choose to keep my head in the sand, then the amount of remorse you're going to have after this is over is going to be huge. I want you to understand that. It's going to be huge. And you might say, hey, it's a big responsibility, Gerry, to live my life in truth and to only talk truth and to say I don't know what I don't know, and to be for oneness and not separation, and to use my words to build bridges, not walls, to do all of these things that Spirit wants us to do. Yeah, it's hard, but I got to tell you what, it's the absolute high road. It is the place, the beautiful slice of life. It is in the zone. That's where you want to be. That's where the sweetness is. That's where the rewards are. And that's where life is its cleanest living, because if you're lying to yourself, especially if you're lying because you're afraid of what people might say about you, that's the dirtiest way to it's a feeling of filth, that I'm standing and living in filth. So everybody's feelings are important, every single human's feelings, but they're not more important than the truth. And I want you to understand that someone's feelings are not more important than the truth, right? They're not. Because if you tell someone, a child, that they're a great artist, and you tell them that their whole life, and they're not, and they never work on becoming better at it, they just assume that they're the greatest. You know, the sad life that child is in for the rest of his life, that he feels like he's been lied to. And people know, you can listen to this, especially when you don't have the truth. There's one way to make it more palatable. You turn up the volume and you get others to agree, and the emperor's new clothes occurs. But it doesn't occur for long, because the voice of truth, the voice of the medicine, the voice of nature, of God, is always there, one step away, and it's coming. It comes out. Am I still Catholic? I'm still in love with Jesus. I'm still in love with Jesus. Just the sound of the name is enough for me. I mean, I'm in love. Do I believe in a lot of Catholic doctrine? No. But I do believe in Jesus more than you'd ever know. Guys, join this movement. Join the movement of truth. Share this thing for me today. Share this thing. I want you to share it. Like, it's enough to say that you're in it, but take some action and say, okay, I'm going to press this share button. I want to get this out. You know why? We don't have to get a lot of people. We only have to get a few. But if this is tugging at your heart, please say yes to it. And do me a favor, come to Rythmia. It's not, let me do the Rythmia thing. So it's going to be longer for Costa Rica than it is for other places. Why? Because the virus has already permeated all these other countries. It hasn't here yet. It's unfortunate. It hasn't here yet. So it has to go through its cycle here before we open the borders. Hopefully, we're going to open in August or September, and our marketing department is going to open in August, and we will start inviting you down, booking tours, and you have to get here. And I want to say something else. This might be crazy, but in the beginning, when I talked about having a 17% infection rate, we sent out a survey of people who've been to Rythmia. The respondents to that survey, people who have been here, 7,000 surveys out, 0.2% of ayahuasca drinkers who've come to Rythmia got an infection. 0.2% versus 17% in the world. I'm not making a medical claim, and I'm not trying to draw a distinction between that, but that's what happened. It might lead somebody who's quick to conclusions that maybe drinking ayahuasca is the best thing for coronavirus. I don't know, but that is the truth. So please, I want you to have a beautiful, wonderful, blessed, and sacred week here. And as soon as we start, and I want you to share this, and I want you to tell the truth when you talk. Make sure that you know that your talk and about going to Facebook and fighting with people. Sure, there's nothing else to do, and it seems like a great waste, a great use of time, but it's the fucking absolute worst, wrongest thing to do. It doesn't do a thing. It doesn't do any, as a matter of fact, it creates more division. So let's take our game to here this week. Let's move up the ladder. Let's raise the vibration for those that are on this team, and let's change the whole thing together. I know something. I'm not going down without a fight. I am not going to sit here and passively go ahead with everything. I'm going to do what I can do when asked to bring truth and light to the subject. I love you guys. Please stay with us. And by the way, when we open the doors, it's going to be a mad rush here to get in. And I mean an insane mad rush. We have people lining up electronically, like everybody's waiting for me to wave the flag. And so please pick a date in the future. If you can't get in October, November, December, and January because we're full, pick a date in February, March, April, but lock it in so that you can get here. I want the people that come through Rythmia to be a part of the family that is not just talking about it, but is actively changing the world with their lives. Let's make these Roaring 20s the best Roaring 20s in history. Thank you. Have a beautiful week.